Good evening and welcome to this our weekly Wednesday night book study here at the New Covenant House. We are currently studying this book, Christian Anarchism by Alexandre Christoyannopoulos, who wrote it as his doctoral thesis. We are in chapter 3, which deals with the state and the church. And we are currently talking about the state, and there's like a little mini-series of episodes here about the state, 5 to be exact, and we're in the middle of it. The third session in this state examination here talks about the deception of the state. Last week we talked about the violence of the state. Tonight is the deception of the state. It's a little hard to grasp, I thought at least, but we'll do our best on it. It's not exactly a short chapter, and there's a lot of things in it, but we'll take, I think there are at least 3 major points that he's trying to make here. First of all, he talks about candidates for elected office. And one such deception comes with the illusion that democratic government somehow limits or provides safeguards against the state's abuses of power. And we try to demonstrate here that that's just not the case for several reasons. The first reason is about the quality of the candidates for office. And it says that in the process of seeking election, politicians display a behavior that is far removed from the sort of temperance, restraint, and integrity that could moderate any temptation to abuse the power they seek to be entrusted with. So, and it actually concludes that the system that we have encourages the worst candidates to come forward to run for office instead of the best. The democracy provides no tighter guarantee than its alternatives against abuses of power by those in government, it says. And abuses of power is major theme in the state violence. One way that the state deceives us into thinking that democracy is somehow better than all other forms of government. Somebody said one time that democracy is the worst type of government except for all the others, but the anarchist writers conclude that it is also the worst, among the worst. And Tolstoy writes that when there are 100 people and one rules over the rest, it's easy enough to see that that is unjust. It is also easy enough to see that if there's like 90 and 10 rule over the rest, it's still unjust. But as soon as you have 51 ruling over 49, it's just all of a sudden. And the deception is that in reality it's not 51 ruling over 49, it is even a smaller number that's ruling over the 49, because there is a large number that are really silent. They simply just acquiesce, they accept what the few are saying. And I hear that over and over again, for example, in the way the political parties in our country they select candidates. The illusion is that you have primaries and people vote for the candidates they like best. But the leaders of the political parties have already decided who they want to back. So it's really not a true election that is happening. So that's the deception. That's I hear we have a visitor here today. Welcome. I will follow our usual format here and go over the text first, and then I will turn off the recording, and then we can discuss if you have any questions afterwards in privacy. So, and to continue the text, so here on the next page, the claim to moral legitimacy makes it more excusable to commit acts that are in reality no less violent or abusive. Moreover, and paradoxically, as Tolstoy points out, this deception turns democratic electorates into willing participants in their own slavery. Democracy, therefore, is a deceptive form of government, is the conclusion from that. And then he goes on and talks about a hypnotic sense of duty thanks to which each individual cog in the state's violent machinery plays its part and yet evades its responsibility. And here he gets into the idea that all the tasks in our system have been divided so that everybody is answerable to somebody. And I just took orders from, I just did what I was ordered to do by somebody higher up. And so nobody really feels any responsibility. They were already working on orders from somebody, and people have been led into believing this. Similarly, for example, he says here, not a single judge will consent to strangle with a rope the man whom he has condemned to death. Again, you don't take responsibility for anything, so, and that's why the state can get away with all of these injustices. I'm not going to go into, there's a lot more in this particular point that he's making here, but there's a little hard for me to grasp it really. So I'm not, we can dive into it deeper if you want, but for now we'll skip that. And then the last point that he is making is about patriotism. And it has to do with this hypnotic concept again, that people believe something that's not really true. Patriotism is really a hypnosis of a whole nation, prepare them to commit the most terrible barbarities against fellow human beings. It deludes them into thinking that the violence they commit has a higher purpose, that what they are doing is not upholding a deeply unjust system, but defending the values and the territory of the fatherland. And then he also goes into this idea that the state deliberately inflames international rivalries. For example, he says that there are peace conferences, but they are really war conferences. They are not intended to keep the peace at all in the name of peace. Moreover, international military alliances convened in the name of peace are for him nothing but alliances of war. And we can just point to NATO. They say it's a peacekeeping force, but it is really an alliance for war. In sum, to wrap it up, the Christian Anarchist, the state relies on a set of powerful deceptions in order to nurture the alleged consent of the same people it commits violence against. Tolstoy speaks of people being hypnotized by these deceptions. And he makes, in his book, The Kingdom of God is Within You, he makes 5 points. He says that first you must promise and swear to us that you will slavishly obey us in everything we prescribe to you. And the second point is that secondly, you must hand over to us part of the fruits of your labor, so taxes in other words. And the third point is, third, you must elect others or be elected yourself to take a pretended part in the government, knowing all the while that the administration will proceed quite independently of foolish speeches that you and others like you may utter. And number 4, you must take part in the senseless cruelties we perpetrate on erring people whom we have perverted. And finally, he says, you may be on people you may be on friendly terms with men of other nations. You must be ready as soon as we order it to consider as your enemies those whom we shall point out to you. So I couldn't get into all of the things that he's saying, and it's really quite deep. But that was the gist of it, that the state is really deceiving us into believing that we have participants in the decision-making process, which we are not. And we also are deceived into believing that we don't have to take responsibility for anything, really. I think that's the major points that he's trying to make. So that was about the number 4 in this series. Next week is about the economic exploitation of the state. So thank you for coming, and we'll now switch to turning off the recording so that we can have a private discussion.